And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Earl Smith, and I'm the host of The Earl Smith Show. We are at war. Make no mistake about it. There is a war against law enforcement in America. And consequently, the war is also against our entire nation. It is nothing less than an attempt to destroy the fabric that is America. Today, there are a few topics more important than what I have to share today. Tragically, we are at war in our nation. I said we are at war in our nation. While there is no official and written declaration of war, make no mistake about it, leftists, socialists, communists, whatever you choose to call them, have declared war on our nation's law enforcement professionals. Against a growing backdrop of murdered law enforcement officers, destroyed families, and an even longer list of murdered citizens, leftist, socialists, and even some likely communist politicians defame law enforcement professionals at every opportunity. Sadly, more and more of these frauds masquerading as political leaders have leadership positions in our government and our courts. But there's no hiding their true contempt for our nation and for our amazing system of government. According to preliminary year-end data provided to CNN by the FBI, 73 officers nationally were murdered in felonious killings in the line of duty in 2021. The year 2021 marks the highest total recorded by the FBI since 1995, excluding the attacks of 9/11. Let me acknowledge that, yes, we do lose more of our brothers and sisters to accidental deaths than by homicide. But frankly, one has nothing to do with the other. And while one is unintentional and likely does need to be addressed more thoroughly, the other is deliberate and intentional. Increasingly, the murder of law enforcement professionals is not only intentional, but also planned, the most cold-blooded of killings. As of this writing in 2022, there were already 24 law enforcement officers murdered as of January of this year. This has all the markings of what a banner year for murdering police officers could be. And let me add that more and more frequently, the men and women who serve our nation's fire departments are also finding themselves to be targets as well. For folks at home who are not in law enforcement or do not know anyone in law enforcement, you may think this isn't your concern. Or maybe you simply think that dying on the job is just one of those risks attached to this profession. And yes, death is a risk, a terrible risk of this job. But while people in other professions do die at work, very few of them will be deliberately and violently murdered as a consequence of their career choice. But what is even more important is that the average citizen is also at greater risk of attack. Think about it. Any individual willing and capable of murdering a law enforcement officer is absolutely capable of murdering the average citizen as well. Maybe even more willing to kill an average citizen. In fact, the homicide rate in our nation has skyrocketed in many, if not most, major cities. Ironically, most of those same cities are under the political control of left-leaning Democrats, liberals, socialists, communists, whatever, the differences between them being pretty minimal nowadays. Many of these same political leaders speak openly, loudly, derogatively, and frequently about our nation's law enforcement professionals. They accuse, they blame, deride, and ridicule them at every opportunity. And how does the public respond? Given the impression that verbally and/or physically attacking law enforcement is okay, maybe even good, more and more people are willing to initiate an aggressive confrontation with law enforcement. I am proud to say I served for well over 3 decades in law enforcement. I was, and I still am, more than proud of my chosen profession and the organization, the Columbus, Ohio Division of Police, that were such a huge and important part of my adult life. I saw things, heard things, experienced things, and smelled things that thankfully only a few citizens will ever be able to understand. I lost too many friends and associates. Actually, only firefighters and members of our armed forces who saw combat will fully appreciate the PTSD, the nightmares that haunt me to this day. To my fellow citizens, you need to wake up. Do you fully understand that by weakening the ability of those who work to assist and protect you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you are also imperiling you and your loved ones? How many of you are willing, able, and capable of defending yourself and your loved ones from a dangerous and potentially violent criminal? Let me acknowledge the reality that there are people in law enforcement who should never wear a shield. But in comparison to almost any other prominent profession, the percentage of so-called bad cops is fewer by percentage than other professions. Remember, we hire from the entire spectrum that is the human animal. This ensures we will occasionally hire men and women who in hindsight may prove to be a poor choice. Improved funding for the initial academy training, monies to ensure ongoing high-quality in-service training, improved availability of psychological services, and removing political considerations from the hiring process would all go a long way toward assisting law enforcement organizations in hiring, training, and retaining the sort of men and women capable of doing an ever more complicated job in a fast-changing and very confusing world. And finally, a large part of the equation for successful result from law enforcement comes from the community and the citizens they serve. For as long as I can recall, the unwritten but prominent don't snitch rule has been a part of the neediest and most crime-impacted neighborhoods. Yet even as a friend or family member becomes the next murder victim, the typical and all too predictable response from those impacted and capable of helping solve such a terrible crime is, "I can't or won't help you," or "I don't snitch." And so the horrific pattern continues. In my view, this is nothing less than a self-inflicted genocide. Now the time has come to decide. You should understand that an attack on law enforcement is an attack on every law-abiding American. It cannot continue, and it should never be tolerated. This cannot be overstated. You're either on the side of good or on the side of evil. The lie of neutrality is what permitted the Nazis to become established. You cannot afford to sit on the fence as a spectator. This is your country. Countless men and women have given their lives over the past 246 years to keep us free, to make us the unique nation that people from around the world struggle, sacrifice, and even die to escape to. We are the very beacon of freedom and opportunity, but even God himself will not save us from our own stupidity. It is up to us, we citizens, to work together to implement good changes, to take responsibility for one another, to ensure that the war raging from inside and against us ceases. It is a choice, it is an opportunity, it is an imperative. I'd like to ask once again that you like and share this YouTube video. Please subscribe to my channel, The Earl Smith Show. Your support is crucial, and it's the only way I'll be able to continue this effort. Also, please feel free to reach out to me with your ideas and suggestions at theearlsmithshow@gmail.com. Again, that's theearlsmithshow@gmail.com. God bless you, and God bless America.